Hello, I'm Nate, aka B2 Mutineer. I make guides and discussion videos about games I like, and have been doing so for what is now a full year. So, happy 1-year birthday, B2 Mutineer. This is going to be more of a self-reflection kind of video, which I'm planning to make every year on or around the 26th of December to share my thoughts about the channel and my progress with it. Some of my subscribers may find this interesting, but I'm not expecting this to be a very popular video. Still, it's important for me to do some reflection and look back at each year and have a tangible video I can return to watch later on in my journey with B2 Mutineer. It also helps me to reevaluate and get together some goals at the start of each year. I'll split this video up into a few different parts: where I started a year ago, where I am now, an analysis of how the year went, what my plans are for the next year and my hopes and expectations for that, and of course, to tie it all together, a little conclusion at the end with some advice for creative people who may be struggling to find their thing just like I did. Timestamps will of course be in the description, and if at the end of my video you still have questions about any channel related things, feel free to pop them down in the comments and I'll answer as best I can. Without further ado, let's get into it. I began this channel as a Christmas gift to myself because I wanted to have a creative outlet that didn't feel like a chore and didn't have big expectations tied to it. I'm autistic and have ADHD, and so it's extremely difficult for me to commit to big long-term projects, especially if they're a bit too general or if I get stressed out by the idea that they have to be good. I tried the YouTube/streaming thing before, but never got farther than a handful of videos and some tiny streams that barely anyone watched. My interest fizzled away, and I never picked the idea up again until that moment at the end of 2023. This time, what helped is that I decided to focus on one of my constant special interests, Dragon Age, more specifically Dragon Age Origins. It's my all-time favorite game and has been since I first played it in 2010, so I figured that at the very least my motivation would last for a few more videos than what I had managed to make before. And even if I eventually gave up on it, I would have some nice videos that I could feel proud of about my favorite game. But with this shift in focus towards the game I love, I've been able to consistently make videos for an entire year. And I did occasionally branch out to talk about other games too, which makes me excited for next year when I'll want to tackle other cool games outside of Dragon Age more than I've done this year. The fact that I've been able to upload consistently genuinely surprised me. I could never have expected that I'd enjoy creating these videos so much, or that I'd be able to keep up my motivation to continue making them even a year later. There is another super important factor that led to my success with keeping up with the channel, which is that I got some really good advice from a fellow ADHD, Autism plus ADHD content creator, Tris, aka No Boilerplate. I watched some of his videos about creating videos and audio and such, and then I went out of my comfort zone and contacted him by email to ask him for advice. He was super nice and gave me great advice for how to be more consistent with creating things. His advice was very simple but extremely effective. Make it easy to create what you want. Minimal video editing, simple audio recording and editing were the most important things for me to focus on because they were and still are my biggest time and effort sinks. I don't mind spending multiple hours researching and writing a script because that's something I enjoy doing, so it doesn't feel draining. However, audio and video editing is something that feels like a chore, so I keep it as simple as I can. In this way, I can usually edit a video from start to finish in a matter of a few hours at most. And the audio usually takes 1 hour or less to edit, for videos with a reasonable length, of course. I'm sure it still takes me longer to complete these tasks than it would take other people, but I tend to move slower in general. My motor skills aren't great, so I have to slow down when I edit little audio or video clips because my hands aren't super steady or I get twitches and so on. But this is still a huge improvement on the time and effort needed to complete a video, and it helps me keep things manageable. So I want to say a huge thank you to Tris, who was extremely kind and supportive and helped kickstart my journey with B2 Mutineer. Please give his channel, No Boilerplate, a look. He makes fast, technical videos about various subjects like coding, creating things, and some very interesting, more personal related videos about ADHD, autism, and stuff like that, which I really love. For people interested in fiction podcasts, I can also recommend his 2 podcasts, Lost Terminal and Modern Prometheus. I'll include links to his channel and podcasts in the description. At the moment of recording this script, I'm sitting at over 3.4 thousand subscribers. This is a huge number for me. I expected to get to maybe a bit over 1,000 during the first year. I think my video about the trans representation in Veilguard got a lot of new people to see my channel and decide that they liked my content enough to subscribe. Thank you for that, by the way. In fact, that video is at around 140,000 views. It's obviously my most viewed video so far and the only one to be over 40,000 views. I didn't intend for my critique of Veilguard's trans rep to get me a ton of views or anything like that. I just made it hoping that at least some people would get to see a more regular kind of perspective from a trans person, because I felt that there was a lot of negativity towards the trans community due to Veilguard's problems and the online behavior of some people. I just wanted to show that not every person in a community is as extreme as people think based on the actions or words of a handful of people or certain harmful over-the-top representations in media. The extreme people in a community or fandom tend to be a minority, an unfortunately loud and belligerent kind, but a minority nonetheless. No need to hate on an entire community for the bad decisions of a few people. I am, of course, happy that my video got a lot of views, but it was overwhelming to get such a huge amount of comments, and I was definitely not prepared for that. Most of the comments were in good faith, but there were some bad ones out there too, which completely misunderstood my point or else focused on one single small thing that I said and took it out of context to make it seem like it was the worst thing ever. I understand now that I can just ignore those comments and even delete them if I think they're made specifically to insult me and have no constructive merit. But in the beginning, I wasn't aware of this, so I got quite upset and also tried to respond to people to explain that their comment was off base and such. I'm autistic, so it's hard for me to tell when people are just being mean or negative. I tend to assume that everything is said honestly and constructively, so it's difficult to understand the concept of rage bait and such. Nowadays, I just ignore most comments I get on that video. There's way too many for me to be able to keep up with, and besides, I've moved on from the whole Veilguard debacle. I don't want to think about that disappointment anymore. I'm way happier making content about the Dragon Age trilogy, as well as other actually good games I enjoy playing. When it comes to income, I have been pleasantly surprised to find that in just 1 year, I've managed to start getting payments from ads and memberships. I'm not yet at a point where I make enough money each month for my needs, but I might be able to get there in the next year or two. In terms of how this first year of YouTube went, I think it was fairly comfortable and very joyful, though it took me a little while until I found my groove. In the beginning, my DAO guides were a bit rough around the edges, so that's why during December, I remade my Alistair and Morrigan guides since they were the first two companion builds I made for the channel, and I wanted to update them to the better structured and more detailed format. I also didn't have any gameplay footage in the beginning, so I had to keep recording stuff every time I made a new video. Now I have quite a lot of recordings of Origins, so I can reuse older bits and pieces of gameplay whenever I make a DAO video, which definitely saves on time. Adding a consistent intro and outro together with my campfire footage helped me feel like my videos are more me, more recognizable. I took inspiration from Mortismal Gaming for my intro and outro, and his channel in general is a huge inspiration. I would never be able to make the types of reviews after 100% that he does, or put out so many videos each week, but even more than the huge amount of videos he uploads, I really enjoy that he's honest with his reviews and discusses games from his own perspective, but tries to present things in a more neutral fashion to be able to be thorough. Even when my tastes don't align with his, he checks out many different games and allows me to get a good idea of what the game is like, no matter what his own opinion is. So I just wanted to give him a shout out, even though it's extremely likely that most, if not all, of my subscribers are aware of his channel. The link to his channel will of course be down in the description. This first year wasn't all sunshine and rainbows though. I had some weeks when my energy was lower and I was unable to upload videos. Mostly this was when I had health-related problems, so I'm hoping for less of those next year. I also had a full-time job for half of the year, which took a lot of my time and energy. But after I left that job, I felt like I had much more time to be able to work on my scripts and video ideas. Overall, it went much better than what I'd expected. But to be fair, that was a very low bar since I expected I would give up after a few months. It certainly surprised me to get so many subs, and I didn't expect to get any members at all. And yet there's a few of you here already. Thank you so much. I am extremely happy with what I managed to do during 2024. This channel has been an absolute highlight, and I finally feel more creatively fulfilled, though of course I always have a million ideas I can never finish, no matter how much I do end up creating. In terms of my plans for 2025, I want to continue making one video each week, with the occasional bonus video whenever I have the energy to get one out. I would like to get ahead with 1-2 videos so that in case something happens in a week and I can't make a video, I still have something to post. Not sure if or when I'll be able to make these extra videos ahead of time, but it would help me out a lot, especially if I catch a flu, since I wouldn't be able to record any audio if my throat is messed up. As for the content of my videos, during the month of January, I will make Inquisition builds for a few companions, and the comprehensive guide to the warrior class in Dragon Age Origins. I still also have to make an in-depth guide for the rogue class in DAO, but that one will come later because it takes me a very long time to research and write these types of guides, and I also have these Inquisition guides to focus on anyway. In February, Avowed will come out, and so I will switch gears, at least for a while, to make videos for it. I pre-ordered the premium edition, which means I'll have access to the game early for 5 days, and so in that time I want to play enough of it and ideally finish it in order to be able to make a comprehensive review and then start making some guides. I'll have time to make a Dragon Age video in the first week of February, but afterwards it will likely be all Avowed, plus possibly a little mention of Civilization 7 and what I'm enjoying about it. A mini review of sorts. From March onwards, it's going to be more freeform. More Avowed guides and discussion videos, Dragon Age here and there, plus whatever other game has my attention at the time. I've already talked about the games I'm most excited for in 2025 in my previous video, so those will absolutely make an appearance if they do indeed end up releasing in 2025. I don't have any goals that are super set in stone other than this. I would like to reach 5,000 subs and ideally get closer to earning a monthly income that lets me buy groceries and other things I want or need to buy on occasion. But these goals are not really fully dependent on me. It's more just a question of whether my videos will interest people enough to get picked up by the algorithm to go farther than my usual audience. My target income per month isn't huge, I don't think. It would be around 500 euros or $520 for the Americans out there. I don't have to pay rent since I live in an owned apartment with my partner, and she also has an income, so we both pay for stuff. Due to this, it's also fine if I don't make exactly the same amount each month, as long as overall in the year it averages out to 500 euros a month. YouTube ad revenue can be a bit inconsistent due to it being directly linked to how well your videos are doing, and frankly there's not anything I can or want to do about that other than keep making more videos and hope for the best. I will always make only the videos that I want to make. I can't worry about how my videos will perform. As I mentioned earlier in the How I Started section, I have to make videos about stuff I care about. Otherwise, my motivation isn't there and I can't finish things. If I force myself to make something just because it's popular, it would extremely quickly lead me to creative burnout, essentially be unable to create anything for a long time and feel terrible, which I've experienced earlier in life, and it's not something I ever want to experience again. In order to reach my goal, I estimate I would need maybe 150,000 views or so per month. This is based on the fact that in the month of November, I did manage to make over 500 euros before tax due to my Transrep and Veilguard video. I don't think my videos need to go viral or anything like that, since the views can come both from new videos as well as my growing catalog of uploads. While topical videos such as the one about Veilguard may do well for a short time, they do fizzle out, and I think that my guides and other more evergreen reviews, guides, and discussions are way better long-term for my channel, which works out perfectly for me since those are the kinds of videos I want to make like 90% of the time. I'm not really interested in drama or controversy, so I just make so-called controversial videos when I want to talk about something that is important to me. Otherwise, I leave the drama for drama-focused channels. I have way too many ideas for videos and not enough time and energy to make them all as is. Don't want to waste it on controversies just because negativity sells. I'm hopeful that I might reach my monthly income goal during 2025, since there are quite a lot of games that are releasing next year that I'm interested in, and I will be making at the very least some reviews and discussion videos about them, as well as possibly guides for the games which would benefit from guides, such as Avowed. Ideally, these videos would be both topical and evergreen, but there's no way to know how interested people will be in these games and for how long, so it remains to be seen. In conclusion, I'm very happy with how B-Tier Mutineer has done so far, and optimistic for the channel's future. I have plans to continue making Dragon Age content, of course, but also add other games I'm enjoying to the mix, such as Avowed, and a little video here and there about other non-RPG or smaller games that I want to highlight on my channel. I'd actually love to hear your thoughts on this. If you have any suggestions for future videos, leave them in the comments. I've gotten great suggestions in the past from my subscribers and ended up making a lot of the videos they asked for, such as the Dragon Age Inquisition mods video I recently posted. I still have some subscriber suggestions I'll get to eventually, such as my Dragon Age canon, world state, favorite romances, and such, but do let me know if there's other games you want me to take a look at, or particular topics about Dragon Age, especially Origins or Inquisition, that I haven't touched on yet. Now, as I promised, a little bit of advice for people who may be looking for a creative outlet but haven't found the right thing yet, or people who are considering starting a YouTube channel. First, if you want to start a YouTube channel, do it. Even if you give up on it after a few videos, you'll have gained some experience and possibly even enjoyment out of creating those few videos. If you give up on something you'd like to do without even trying it a little bit, you'll never find out whether it would have been the right thing for you. And hell, you may even have to try it multiple times in slightly different ways for it to stick. Just like I tried the YouTube thing a couple of times before finally reaching the version of this that fits me with B-Tier Mutineer. If you're a creative person who hasn't so far been able to stick to a particular creative hobby or endeavor, no matter whether it's due to ADHD or other reasons, my first advice is this. It's okay to feel frustrated about this. It can be very difficult to try new things, especially if you think it's all going to end up in the same way, abandoned after a little while, making you feel bad because of it. But the hard truth is that if you don't try, you'll feel even worse. You have a creative drive, a need to express yourself and your ideas in some way, and if you don't satisfy that need, you will feel frustrated, tired, depressed, and so on. I can't tell you what exactly will be the creative outlet that works for you, but I can tell you this. For me, in terms of my autism and ADHD, it had to be something that combined multiple of my favorite things. Only focusing on one thing I enjoy doesn't cut it. I tried writing stories, and it's fun, but it gets boring if I don't complete a project quickly. And I personally don't like writing short stories. I prefer long-form fiction, but at the same time, so far, I haven't had the ability to finish something like a novel. I've tried writing theater plays, writing ideas for TV shows, and thinking about going into screenwriting. I've even been trying to make video games for many years, and all I have to show for it so far are many concept documents with ideas and outlines, a tiny half-broken game jam fishing game, and a short Twine text adventure. But in terms of game making, I am actually fairly certain I'll eventually be able to make a game that I'll upload on Steam. It's one of my bigger goals in life. Outside of writing, I've also tried making my own scented candles. Terrible idea due to being very easily overstimulated. Clay modeling, I have a Sphinx cat head and a little statuette of my Sphinx cat, as well as a statuette of my old dog. I did wood whittling and only ended up making a small wooden knife before I tried to make something far too complicated as my second project and gave up. I tried knitting, which ended up being also far too complicated and not really something I cared about. I tried making tabletop dice, which I made a few of and then stopped. Thankfully, my partner ended up picking up the dice making. She has a dice shop on Etsy, so if you're interested in handmade dice, check out Moonstone Dice Art. Link in the description. The ADHD abandoned hobby pile of shame is real, but I make sure to throw out the hobby items I buy and stop using so that I stop feeling bad for not using them. And also so they stop taking up space in the house for no reason. But through trial and error, the most important thing that I eventually learned is that just because I like one thing doesn't mean that that one thing is enough to hold my interest for a long time, creatively speaking. B-Tier Mutineer is a successful creative outlet for me because it touches upon multiple things I love. As I mentioned, I started with Dragon Age Origins only because I knew that since it's a special interest, I can focus on it for a long time before it becomes boring. Later on, I also started to make videos here and there that weren't about Dragon Age because at that point I felt comfortable and confident enough in my ability to stick with the channel even if I branched out. But the initial Dragon Age Origins focus was very important to get me to a point where I felt consistent enough with my output. On top of Dragon Age and games, I really love researching things and writing more educational style videos. I also wanted to go into academia and teaching creative writing a while back. So my B-Tier guides were the perfect thing to start with and to keep as a main focus of my channel. I also have strong opinions on being able to improve upon builds in games and kind of optimize without going so far as to min-max, because for me, min-maxing takes the fun out of playing. So of course, being able to make guides that have this kind of B-tier is good approach makes me happy. And finally, I have lots of thoughts and opinions about games, especially when it comes to writing and narrative design, but also other things like gameplay, which I haven't gotten to talk about as much on the channel yet. I love being able to ramble about my thoughts on these subjects, so that's where my discussion videos come in. They allow me to discuss more deeply a certain aspect of a game that I'm interested in and share my thoughts with others, which always feels very nice, especially when I get to read your thoughts too in the comments. Videos like my favorite and least favorite quests in DAO, ranking the DAO companions, the games I'm most excited for in 2025, and so on, have been really fun to make. They're generally much more relaxed videos than the guides because there's far less research to do, though of course some of them can take quite a while to make, simply because there's a lot to talk about, like the DAO companion ranking. But overall, I feel that I've found a very nice balance between guides and discussion videos with the occasional impression or review, allowing me to move between these different types of content, which makes the process of creating videos feel more fresh and exciting. So as you can see, this YouTube channel is the right creative outlet for me because 1, it's the perfect blend of multiple things I love, Dragon Age, and now slowly adding in other games, research and educational content, rambling about certain aspects of games I'm interested in, and sharing my thoughts and impressions on games with others. 2, the very types of videos I make cause the creation process to feel fresh and exciting, thus keeping my ADHD brain happy. Obviously, each person has their own such combination of favorite things, as well as limitations or other circumstances they need to keep in mind in order to find the right creative outlet for them. If you'd like to try my approach of finding something that is a mishmash of the things you enjoy most, I recommend making a list of your favorite things. Include all sorts of things you like there, whether it's specific games you've been playing for years and still love, particular activities you like, such as researching and going on wiki deep dives at 3 AM is one of my things, etc. And once you have a huge list of these, cut it down to the things that you actually enjoy the most. Be ruthless with it. Think of it this way, if you could only pick maybe 3 to 5 of these favorite things to do or enjoy for the rest of your life, what would they be? What are those things that you keep coming back to, even when you want to do or should be doing something else? What are those things that keep you thinking on the toilet or in bed late at night, or those things you're itching to talk about with someone else to share your thoughts or ideas? These things that kind of invade your life whether you intend for them to do so or not. These are the things that you really enjoy doing. These are the things that would likely make you happier if you can somehow combine them into a larger project or activity. Of course, I can only give this advice from my own perspective. As someone who's ADHD, I'd been struggling for years, really since my teens, to find out what I really wanted to do in life as a creative thing. I knew it had to be creative, or at least creative in the sense of problem solving, but for the longest time I had no idea what my thing was, even though I'd tried so many different creative activities. A gaming-focused YouTube channel ended up being my thing. Who knows what yours will be? If you do end up figuring it out, I'd love to hear all about it. Don't be shy to send me an email to talk about what your creative thing is. I think sharing our passions with each other is one of the most fun parts of life. I hope my advice was helpful, or at the very least not actively unhelpful. I wish you all luck in your creative endeavors. Finally, 2025 will be a big year for gaming, at least in terms of the games I personally play. So I'm very excited for it and for the videos I'll be able to make on the channel. Hopefully, all the games I look forward to end up being great, and I can share my enjoyment of them with you all. This is my last video for the year, so I wish you a joyful and refreshing end of 2024, as well as a happy new year for 2025. I'll see you again next year, aka next week. If you're looking forward to videos about games I like, do remember to subscribe if you aren't already, and leave a like and comment while you're at it too. They really help. A special thank you to my members who help keep this channel running. I'd really appreciate it if you'd consider joining the channel as a member to support me and unlock perks like early access to videos. This has been B-Tier Mutineer. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.